Welcome to Hotline TV, everybody. I'm John Mercurio.
And I'm Amy Walter. Sarah Palin has proven to be a game changer. Get it?
Is a game change?
Yeah. Do we get any residuals from that?
Probably.
All right.
Probably do. I'll talk to my people. Yes, she has, Amy Walter. Today we're going to take a look at how she will affect or will not affect the 2010 midterm elections. All right, we've got a couple of topics here we want to get through. First of all, this weekend in Tennessee, Sarah Palin will be the keynote speaker at the Tea Party gathering. This is on February 6th, this Saturday. Palin going to address, sort of a controversial, but definitely a conservative element in the Republican Party.
Yes.
Amy, how's that going to work out for her
and
for the party?
Well, it's interesting because probably the biggest highlight of this convention thus far has been the fact that it has been totally disorganized.
Right.
There's been frustration about how much money it costs, that it's a for-profit expenditure, that Sarah Palin was going to get a six-figure sum to speak there. She says now that she's not going to be taking that speaking fee or giving it back somehow. Unclear how that's going to work. But the bottom line is, as you and I have discussed for some time now, that this Tea Party movement in and of itself has not yet proven to be all that instrumental in electing people or in raising money for candidates. And that energy, while it may be significant, I think it's overestimated by many in the media.
Okay, all right. I think that's definitely true, but I think that this event this weekend could be the seminal turning point in what this movement clearly needs, which you're right, is to be much more effective on the campaign trail, both raising money and electing candidates. And I think, look, Sarah Palin for them is a godsend in some ways.
That's true.
She legitimizes the movement, in case it hadn't already been legitimized by turning out large numbers of people to different gatherings, different demonstrations, marches. And she does so in a very high-profile media way. And I think we could end up seeing this being a turning point, not just for the movement, but for Sarah Palin. 2009 for Sarah Palin was all about sort of regrouping, raising money for herself, through her book, writing her book, and sort of preparing to relaunch. And I think we're seeing with this speech, with a lot of other things that we'll get to, we're now seeing sort of this this evolution of her into sort of a much more of a political animal that we've all been waiting for since the 2008 race.
Very good point. All right, the topic number two, the fact that she in the last week has endorsed both John McCain, obviously her former running mate, who is in for a tough primary, and Rand Paul, running against the establishment candidate in Kentucky. I think your point is really a good one about reestablishing the Sarah Palin brand. And this could not highlight the contradictions more than, it highlights it more than anything else, which is there's still a loyalty there to certain parts of the McCain campaign, and obviously there's still the fighting that goes on with other elements beyond that. But she needs to move beyond just being the VP candidate. And whether it's the Tea Party convention or whether it's Rand Paul, she wants to put herself out there as the non-establishment establishment candidate. And so, not a bad idea.
Well, and let's not forget either that Rand Paul is who he is right now because he's the son of McCain Republican presidential primary rival Ron Paul. Okay, so there is sort of a direct connection and some questions about how much Palin during the Republican primary was supporting McCain, how much she was supporting other candidates, potentially even Ron Paul. But yes, she does go up against Mitch McConnell in this race. Obviously, sort of the kingpin in Kentucky Republican politics doesn't like to be crossed by the establishment or by other Republicans. So by her coming in and supporting Rand Paul, I think you're already starting to see some of the friction developing between her and the Senate Republican leadership.
Point.
But look, I mean, she has, I think, with the exception of McCain, who she, I think a lot of people understand it. Look, she clearly owes him. She owes him the loyalty. She has to endorse him. She's a godsend to him in a way, frankly, because she can, to anyone who questions his conservative principles, he can say, "Look who I wanted to become my successor as president." Obviously, someone who conservatives like a lot. But with the exception of McCain, I think you see her siding almost across the board with the conservative alternative in a Republican primary.
Okay.
Rick Perry, blah blah blah, etc.
Topic number three: Palin and her fundraising. Not a completely impressive experience for Sarah Pack. In fact, Hotline On Call reporting that she spent more money buying her own books than she did to fundraising or actually giving that money out to candidates.
Right.
Now that we can discuss the fact that many of those books she purchased went out to donors as an add-on. But here's the point. As I said long ago, Sarah Palin part of what you do as a presidential wannabe is you build up chits with people through your PAC. You give money to important members of the establishment who are running for re-election, or people who are trying to knock off a Republican seat. When I look at the list, or knock off a Democratic seat, when I look at the list of people she has given money to, many of them are in seats or in races that are not competitive at all.
Right.
And of the people who are, Roy Blunt, Senator Burr, Senator Grassley, and then Rand Paul were really the most high profile.
Interesting. All right, let's move on. We're running out of time here. Topic for Amy Walter. Sarah Palin will appear for the first time, frankly, since she emerged on the national stage on a Sunday morning political talk show. Of course, Fox News Sunday will be the venue for that. Make sure to tune in. But first of all, what does this mean? How do you think this interview is going to play out?
I don't think she's going to get a lot questions. And even if she, well, I mean, Chris Wallace is known for not pulling his punches when it comes to Republican interviews. At the same time, I don't know just where this could go any different than we've seen from Sarah Palin in the past. Now, obviously things like fundraising and the Tea Parties will be an issue that she hasn't had to address in this forum before. But I don't know that I'm expecting.
I don't know what I'm expecting either, except that I'm going to be watching closely because I think you're right. Chris Wallace always sort of chafes at the idea that he's stuck in this conservative media mold, and I think sometimes comes out of the box even more aggressively towards Republicans. And what that can end up meaning is more gotcha type questions. He's not sort of immune to sending out those types of questions. You could see, and she, of course, is not someone who responds well to feeling like she's in a gotcha situation and then responding to a gotcha question. So
that's a very good point. And remember what Sunday talk shows have meant to certain wannabe presidential candidates. Bill Richardson, of course, the most famous example. Do not go on a Sunday show if you are not prepared for a Sunday show.
John Edwards also didn't do well.
Exactly.
That's another story. All right, last words today. Will Sarah Palin campaign in 2010 for Republican candidates in swing states or competitive swing state races?
Right. I thought this was interesting. The one competitive race where she has contributed, Roy Blunt in Missouri. I just don't think that Roy Blunt would bring her in in the general election. Although at this point, I don't know who would be more toxic in Missouri, Obama or Palin.
Right.
I think 6 months ago, I would have said absolutely not. She will not go into any of those swing states, or at least she will not be invited into those swing states. It might not be as bad if this time around, although I think Republicans are already going to be fired up enough already. They're not going to need the extra incentive. It's really Democrats who need to find that.
Well, I think you also need to look at what polls look like in September and October. If Roy Blunt is suddenly ahead by 26 points over Robin Carnahan, then it gets easier to bring in Palin. And frankly, it becomes a favor to Palin to bring her into Missouri. You know, as you noted, she has also contributed to Chuck Grassley. Her interests in Iowa remain strong in 2012. Potentially, and so I think it's important for her to play in a state like Iowa. Grassley doesn't have a really strong opponent, so you could probably see her go into a state like that. But I think with the exception of the ones that we've mentioned, I would answer no. I think it's unlikely for her to be there. But that will do it for today for us.
And until next time, we'll see you on Hotline TV.